Hello, hello. Today we are talking about how many attempts will it realistically take to get your R01 funded? So, first thing, if you're new around here, I'm Sarah Dobson. I am a research grant consultant and academic career coach. And one of the things that I do is work with women faculty who are transitioning from K wards to their first R01. And this is something that comes up, it's sort of a worry that comes up underneath that question of when should I get started? Where, at what point in my K ward should I start writing my first R01? And the worry underneath that is it's going to take me a long time. It's going to take multiple attempts for me to get funded. So when is the right time to get started? And yes, as we've talked about in previous videos, it really does help to think of getting funding at the R1 level as a process. But I also want to talk about some of the factors that go into the number of attempts that it actually takes, right? So I'm just going to pull up my notes here and we will get started. So, okay, so how many attempts does it take? It really does depend on how you organize your time and your mind to be able to write a really strong R1 application. Okay, here's what I mean. So, for example, if you tell yourself that writing an R1 is really important, but you put it off and you put it off until, 6 weeks before the deadline, and then you binge write the whole thing, you're not going to produce a strong application. You're just not, especially if you're new to this type of application. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces that go into it. And if you are leaving it to the last minute, you're not going to produce your best work, right? So in that case, if that's your pattern, it could take you many attempts to get your R01 funded, especially if you end up in this cycle where you binge write and then you need some time to recover and then you need some time to pick up all of the balls that you dropped while you were writing your R01. You just end up in that same cycle over and over again, right? I see this all the time. It is really normal. You're very likely producing an application that is full of errors of grantsmanship, right? So lack of justification, lack of clarity, and disorganization. And what that means is that it's harder for reviewers to assess the scientific merit of your project, right? Because they don't have what they need, or it's really hard for them to find what they need. And that's how you end up with a triage application, or at best, an application that's scored, but just not fundable, right? And look, there are lots of reasons why you might put off writing, and those reasons seem perfectly reasonable. So you have a lot on your plate, you're overstretched and you're overwhelmed. You've been told or you've observed that it's normal to write big grants at the last minute. You can't say no to requests from colleagues, especially senior colleagues. You're unsure of your ideas. So you sort of think about them in the back of your mind, but you're not really taking action. It's just a form of procrastination, right? There are lots of reasons that seem perfectly reasonable why you would put off getting started on an R1. But if you don't figure out a way to prioritize and protect the time you need to write a strong and clear and persuasive R01, you can end up in this situation for quite a few cycles. It can take you multiple attempts before you get your first R01 funded. That's how K award recipients, even the ones who get started writing their first R01 midway through their K award, that's how you end up falling off the K cliff, right? And that's how you end up with that gap in funding. On the other hand, if you recognize early on that a fundable R01 application requires prioritizing your writing time, especially prioritizing that deep thinking that's required to conceptualize your project and connect the dots for your reviewers, if you recognize that and you truly commit to it, you may find that it takes you fewer attempts to get your project funded, especially if you can also focus on developing your grantsmanship skills so that you understand how to write a clear and well-justified application. Okay, so instead of binge writing and scrambling all the time, you have your eyes on the prize. You're putting in dedicated and consistent effort, and you're honing your skills and you're being strategic. So we've worked with several K award recipients who've been funded on their first R01 submission. And of course, this is anecdotal, but these are some characteristics that we have observed from their success. So protecting their time and giving themselves adequate time to write and to think, thinking strategically about how to position their work, having a clear mission and trajectory for their research, and honing their grant writing skills. And of course, because they've worked with us, they are also seeking out help and guidance and opportunities to get feedback, right? So if you're in a situation where you've created this bad habit of binge writing your grants at the last minute, ask yourself how willing you are to dig yourself out of that situation, right? You need to ask yourself, what do you have to lose by not changing the way you're approaching your grant writing? In my opinion, you have a lot to lose by not taking action. Think of all of the time and effort that it takes, and sleep, right? The time and effort and sleep that you lose when you maintain this binge writing habit. And you need to make multiple attempts to get that first R01 funded. Not to mention the stress of worrying about whether you'll be able to get that R01 before your K award funding runs out, right? But if you're willing to change how you structure your day-to-day professional life so that you can prioritize grant writing and prioritize thinking deeply about your research, you have so much to gain. I'm not saying it's easy. It's going to involve some hard decisions, and it's very likely going to involve disappointing some people, and it will probably feel pretty uncomfortable. But on the other side of that is the time and the space to do your best work, to get your projects funded, and to make the impact that you want to make with your research. So that is your action step for today. Ask yourself what you have to gain by changing the way you approach your grant writing. Okay. And this, of course, is one of the very first things we tackle inside my K to R transition program for women faculty. So if you found this video helpful and you're looking for some support as you make that leap from your K award to your first R01, I invite you to apply for the program. There's a link in the caption, in the comment caption for this video that will send you to the application page. And once you fill out an application page, you'll be invited to book a call with me and we can talk about your specific situation. So thanks for watching. I encourage you to apply and I look forward to meeting you.